Desenvolvimento, produção e serviço mundial, sob um nome. Nós criamos soluções. Nós somos a Rode e Schwarz.
Olá, muito boa tarde a todos. Eu tenho o prazer de iniciar o painel que é intitulado Security and Privacy in the 5G Systems Era. Meu nome é Augusto Neto, eu sou professor do Departamento de Informática e Matemática Aplicada da Universidade Federal do Rio Grande do Norte. And at this time, I will switch to English because of the composition of the panel. My name is Augusto Neto. I'm a professor at the Federal University of Rio Grande do Norte, Natal, Brazil. I'm associate professor. I'm a researcher in computer networks and 5G systems. The 5G generation of mobile networks will bring capabilities that will create opportunities for people, business, and society. The upcoming 5G goes beyond only improving network connectivity in the scale of gigabits per second, but will also bring an architecture of disruptive native technologies. 5G promises to make rapid progress in supporting ultra-reliable and low-latency communication, massive machine-time communication, and enhanced mobile broadband use case. 5G networks is envisioned to connect over 7 trillion wireless devices that will be gathering and sharing information in real time to serve over 7 billion people consuming a plethora of compelling application verticals. However, this scenario ushers a new era of security threats and a greater focus on privacy. Unlike the previous generations, we are now witnessing varying priorities for security and privacy, which is considered a serious challenge in the 5G network systems. With that in mind, today I'm glad to share the panel entitled Security and Privacy in the 5G Systems Era at the ENCON 2020 conference. The panel aims to discuss private and security challenges and endeavors for 5G systems. To compose the panel, we invited very active professionals and researchers from both industry and academia. The first panelist I would like to invite is Dr. Michele Nogueira. Michele is professor of computer science at Federal University of Paraná. Her research interests include wireless network security and dependability. Professor Michele, you are now ready to make your speech. Michele, please unmute.
I'm sorry. Thank you so much, Augusto, for the introduction and also for the invitation to participate in this panel. I will provide a very broad overview of a little bit about 5G and more concentrated on security and privacy on this system. So I will start with this overview regarding to the new solutions that 5G can bring us, or in some certain countries, it's already a kind of reality for them. One of them is the autonomous cars. As you see, or with the 5G, we will be able to control these cars and make them autonomous and bring or make them to provide us some automatic driving or self-driving cars that for sure will help us with all these activities on our day-by-day. Another kind of applications or solutions that we can see is of augmented reality. Here I just brought a picture of a scenario where, well, we can imagine that is a very real place where the bikers are there riding, but in fact it is an emulated environment that they are writing for sure in their place, in their physical place, and not outside, but here they can exercise with other people around the world. So other kind of application as this will be easier or supported by the 5G. Another kind of scenario is the industry 4.0, where we can automate the activities in our industry and also connect all the machines and equipments that we have in this place. So this kind of solutions that we can imagine for 5G and is already being built in this upcoming of this new technology. So just another few examples of the smart home that is more common. So we are very used to today with this smart home and all these sensors and the way to automate our activities at home, and also the smart cities in the same belief that we can connect the cars and all the devices and control all the other equipments in our city. In the same mind, we have the smart farm where we also can connect and automate the activities in the farm. So those are solutions that we envision with all the 5G, and we in the background to support those kinds of applications or scenarios. I would like to highlight three main characteristics of the 5G. One is the extremely fast capacity that they have. Just to illustrate, I brought here some comparison regarding to the 3.5, 4G, 4G LTE, 4G LTE Advanced, and 5G. And you can see how can we speed up, or of course this is capacity, a normal capacity, but just to give you a flavor of what we can expect in terms of speed for this kind of communication. So just here what is extremely fast. Well, we can name and have some synonyms for that, but the idea is that 5G will really be fast in terms of data transmission. Another main characteristic is low latency. And for this, I just brought here a commercial from Deutsche Telekom, where the 5G will achieve less than 1 millisecond for those applications. Why this is important? Because in real-time applications, we really need this amount or this kind of latency for them, or low latency in this case. And another thing that is really important to keep in mind is the multiple concurrent connections. And this means that we will be able to connect more devices in our networks with the 5G. So these three main characteristics bring us the support for those scenarios that I just mentioned in the beginning of my talk, but also it brings vulnerabilities for our networks. And some of those vulnerabilities are related with the data, of course, because the majority of those devices will collect data from our environment, from our personal daily activities, and we need to protect them. But we have many other security issues and security concerns that we need to keep in mind. For instance, the authentication is one of the things. Another one is regarding to the identity management. Once we will have many more devices that we have today, so we need to think about how to manage all the identity and how to use that identities for those amount of devices. Imagine just to have a password for each one of those devices and each one of the applications that will be used in the internet. will be just insane. So how can we improve and have more efficient ways to identify and to authenticate in those kind of devices? So those are some of the concerns regarding of security. Of course, we have also concerns regarding to the denial of those services, and mainly when we think about those applications in critical environments. But another thing that is also important is the privacy. And this is another point that is very, bringing, and all the discussion with the 5G is bringing up with the deployment of these devices. One of the things that, at least in Brazil, we know by law that the privacy is a right that allows us to exclude from the third parties what is only relevant to the person. So the person can ask, and this is protected by law, that they can protect what they want, what they think is relevant only for him or her, and then the law needs to be in place. So this is important because when we think about all these new ways to connect to the devices and to interact with the devices, sometimes the privacy is not really followed in those cases. And we need to be aware of that. Another point is that when we start to collect many data from those kind of environments, we need to think about that. So that's just as examples, this kind of side channel attacks that can collect those data and infer the behavior of the people and the devices in the network. So I put here just to finish some of the attacks that we can think about, and they are different from the conventional systems with the 5G. Of course, the ransomwares will be improved and can be very dangerous for those contexts. The different kind of botnets with the mobile devices, we have different kind of botnets that's coming up and can help with this in our services. The authentication, that is different, and also we can think about different kinds of those attacks regarding to authentication and as well identity management. I put here so just two examples of projects that we have been working on against or to protect against those few of those examples that I brought here. So I thank you. I thank you again, Augusto, and then at the end I would be glad to receive some questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Michele, very much. I would like now to invite Dr. Marco Vieira.
Hello.
Marco.
Can you hear me?
Sorry, Marco. Yeah, sure. Let me just introduce you. Sorry. Marco Vieira is full professor at the Department of Informatics Engineering of the University of Coimbra, Portugal. His research interests include dependability, security, attack injection, robustness, and security testing as well. Let's go.
Okay, thank you, Augusto, for your kind presentation. It is a pleasure to be here and to be part of this panel. As Augusto mentioned during his introduction, I come from a slightly different domain. I work on computer security, system security, and privacy, but more from the applications and software perspective. So when I was preparing this talk, I tried to do something a little bit different, or at least a topic that it is important in the 5G era, but it's slightly different from the typical ones. So what I'm going to talk is about trust and trustworthiness, which I believe is one of the key factors for the expansion and the adoption of 5G. So as you know, when we talk about 5G, we are talking about connecting everything. So this is the vision of 5G. Everything is connected. So when we talk about everything is connected from the security perspective, we are saying that security aspects will go far beyond the security of the network. They will address or include also the security of the applications, the security of the information, the people itself, the way the people interact with the network and the applications. So there is a number of typical security requirements that if you look to the literature, you will find as requirements for the 5G. But from my perspective, these are requirements that you find almost everywhere in any system. And these include tools or solutions for assuring data integrity, confidentiality, authentication, access control, non-repudiation, privacy, identity management, key management, policy enforcement, intrusion detection, and so on, and trust, which is the one I bring here. So the question that comes to mind is this very different from traditional security requirements, from the security requirements of any complex system or complex domain? They are. They are because now we are dealing with a context that is much more complex. It's very heterogeneous, dynamic, and very large scale. So when we talk about connecting everything, is not only the network, is, as I said before, everything that is around, everything that is connected. And for example, we need to address aspects like the cascading effects. So a security attack or successful security attack in one part of the network or one application might cascade to other parts of the environment, other parts of the domain. And we also need to take into account the emergent behaviors. So when we are dealing with a system as complex as this, as what we have in the 5G, we have these emergent behaviors that are behaviors that cannot be predicted and start appearing only when you start putting together different systems and different elements. So emergent behaviors are really an important aspect. So instead of individual security solutions, what we need, in my opinion, is a systematic and analytical approach. We cannot just go back and copy what we had from 4G and other domains in terms of security, but we can for sure learn from them. We can learn from the existing security approaches and bring them to the 5G era, but taking this systematic approach, look to the system as a whole and not to the individual parts. One particular aspect that I'm concerned with is that people want really to feel that they can trust the means by which their information is communicated. As Michele was saying before, a lot of information about the users is going to be collected, and I want to be sure and I want to trust the way this information is collected, and I want to be sure that privacy is assured. So what we need is to provide ways for the people, for the users, for people in general to trust, be able to trust the system itself. But this requires some kind of evidences, some kind of way that people can look numbers or scores or some even qualitative evidences that people can look and say, I trust, or I don't trust what is happening in the infrastructure. So trust and trustworthiness are concepts that are broadly studied in many different areas like sociology, economics, psychology, and computer systems, of course. We can distinguish the two by saying that the trust is reliance on a system or service that it will exhibit the expected behavior. So trust is, I trust that the system will behave as expected, and the trust level is a probability of this reliance. So the probability of the system to behave in the expected way. Trustworthiness is, on the other hand, is the worthiness of a system or service for being trusted. So basically it is founded, or it is based on the evidences that the system provides that it can be trusted, or it is worth of being trusted. So trustworthiness is quite complex and it is very subjective, and we can try to map this, for example, to the human behavior. As you know, trust and trustworthiness is something that we deal with every day. So we trust different people are worthy of different levels of trustworthiness, and this trust changes over time and is very subjective. So the trust that I have in another person depends on my feeling and the evidences that I get from the behavior of that person. The idea when we migrate this to computer systems and to the 5G era is basically the same. We need to get evidences, we need to get information that allows users really to be able to decide or to judge if they can trust or they cannot trust the system where that they are using. A key problem regarding trust, or the definition of trust, is the lack of metrics and evaluation methodologies. The need for trust models has been overlooked, and we don't have really very complete trust models. And if we migrate this to the 5G era, the problem is even bigger, because we are talking about an ecosystem that it's much more complex and much more dynamic. And as I said before, trust changes over time. So when the system changes, the level of trust or the worthiness or the trustworthiness might change also. So this is a key aspect, not only to encourage the 5G adoption in a large scale, but also to guide development and improvement. So these levels of trust and trustworthiness might be useful for the providers to decide improvements on the network or improvements on the systems or whatever. In fact, there are some authors that claim that trust, privacy protection, and identity management are the three big challenges in 5G. So it is relevant to say that trust is one of the key aspects. But in my perspective, trust and trustworthiness go beyond security. Although in many cases, when we talk about trust and trustworthiness, we are talking about security aspects, I believe that we need more than this. Is a system trustworthy if it is secure? It is partially trustworthy, but there are other properties that are of interest. So we should consider a more general notion, and to quantify or to characterize this trustworthiness, we need to evaluate what are the relevant measurable characteristics that may influence this trustworthiness. And these characteristics might be functional or non-functional. The non-functional are the ones that we know or we understand very, very easily. So security is just one aspect, privacy is another, dependability and the properties under dependability is another aspect, performance, fairness, transparency, stability, and any other attributes that might be important for the users in order for them to decide if they trust the system or not. So trustworthiness, for me, goes beyond security, and it is indeed a key aspect in the 5G era. So there is a life cycle for trustworthiness, I believe. So whenever you deploy some new application, some new system, some new even a new network slice or whatever you are deploying, you need to characterize, you need to somehow build that application, build that artifact. You need to assess how trustworthy the piece that you are being really is, and if it doesn't achieve a given level of trustworthiness, it should not be deployed. It should only be deployed after that level of trustworthiness is achieved, and then after, at runtime, you should continuously monitor and analyze trustworthiness, because the system keeps changing. We are talking about environments where things evolve. They are not static, and 5G is an excellent example of this. And when you analyze this and you compute some scores, trustworthiness scores, you might decide that the system is not trustworthy anymore, and it's not achieving the required levels of trustworthiness. So in this case, what you should do is to plan and execute some kind of adaptations, improvements, and this should happen in runtime. And 5G and all the ecosystem of 5G will provide really a huge amount of information that can be used to compute trustworthiness scores, and that is a big challenge, because when you have too much information, it becomes very difficult to do something with it and to compute scores that are really of interest. So when we talk about trustworthiness scores, what we mean is to collect evidences from some environment or part of an environment, or from some application or part of an application, and using those evidences, make some computations using some complex operators, and based on these computations, we reach a final score. There is a full theory behind these kind of computations and operators. We call them quality models. This is not something that we invented. This comes from mathematicians, and it's very well founded in science. The difficult issue here is to know which evidences to collect, and also to know how to aggregate those evidences, so to put together these operators. One key aspect that I would like to emphasize again is that trust evolves over time. So this is not something we do once, and we get some scores, and then we say, okay, we trust or we don't trust, and we provide these scores to the users, and they can decide. No, because the system changes, so we need to continuously compute these scores and show this to the users in order for them to trust or not to trust the system they are using. So, in my opinion, there are indeed great security challenges in 5G. I just brought one of the challenges, that is the characterization of trust and trustworthiness, which is not so easy to do. But it is a way to deal with uncertainty and to deal with the evolution, and to put together evidences that come from multiple properties and show something to the users. The assessment of trust and trustworthiness should indeed cover the entire life cycle, not only during development, but also during at runtime. And quality models are just a way for bringing different observations together into some kind of scores. We don't have any
I think Marco is out of network. It's right at the wrap-up of his speech. Well, Marco's background denounced that he should be supposed to be in the other side of the Atlantic at Portugal, but in fact, he's 300 kilometers out of Natal. He's in Recife this week for a very brief visit to the Federal University of Pernambuco. And, and going to the other side, to another ocean, to the Mediterranean Ocean, I would like to invite Dr. Massimo Villari, which is an aggregate professor at engineering faculty at the University of Messina, and also member of the Center of Information Technology Council at the University of Messina as well, both in the city of Messina, Italy. His main research interests are in virtualization, migration, security, federation, and autonomic systems, of course, among others. Right, Massimo? So, Massimo, you're invited to give your speech. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Augusto, for inviting me. It's a real pleasure to be here with all of you. I'm taking my chronometer to be on time, because I know it's not easy to be aligned with all of you in this different perspective. We hope to meet in the real scenarios. So briefly, we go through the introduction and some challenge, and specifically as we make a point, Augusto, in terms of looking what are the possible application, as was introduced before me, understanding what is important for 5G, and then we go for safety and security, some aspect we are dealing here in Messina. So I like to start from concept of smart city that before the COVID, I attended in Expo last year with the municipality of Messina and some other colleagues. As you can see here, a lot of people around, 100 or 1,000 people meet each other. It was really, it seems to be 100 years ago, but it was not, essentially. It was interesting to see that we were looking for different pillars, migration, climate change, and of course, digital transformation is in our situation right now. In Europe, we are discussing a lot for a recovery fund, but also the next generation Europe, because the digital is true will be the future. The world is changing. We're supposed to work in this perspective, and now Augusto and the others people that are asking, listening us, we are changing how to live is the way to go. I hope to be in the future on the beach of Nadao. Even the data centers are changing a lot. Everything is changing with the new stuff. I like to remark that 5G has to come up with a smart city scenario and edge. It's something that you have to identify. You see the picture on the left part of the slide that you try to have a real complex system with data center on the cloud, the network, and 5G is the network. Try to deliver some new services for things, for larger things, edge and things. What are the challenges there? There's provisioning, service composability, portability, networking management. The networking 5G is quite a nightmare, and of course security. These are the concept that we are using here. For provisioning, we have to understand, I repeat, the capability in the smart city and the edge, how we can discover some service, how you attach to the service, how you can use the service. It was good to say from Marco before, saying it's a dynamic. It's true, the scenario is totally dynamic. We change a lot by the time. It's not something that you fix at the beginning and you use it. It's totally different. Then you have the service composability, because you don't know what you can be useful for you tomorrow, and you have to put like a Lego, and also to reuse components and so on and so forth. And portability, because we are looking for a small device, IoTs, small SoC modules. There's the big battle between Intel and ARM. They try to have a lot of competition in small device. This is what is happening, is quite what's important. And network is a nightmare. Even for 5G, I will show you some slides in this perspective for understanding. It's not easy to manage it in some way. In terms of virtualization, because we have to virtualize everything, of course, addressing, naming, and multicast, and so on and so forth, just to use it. And then trust. I can link what was said before, authorization, identity management, federation policy. Federation is a great concept. It was started in the cloud. I started the federation in the cloud with one of the main projects in Europe, named the Reservoir, and now we are working a lot in Messina, but it was disaster recovery and all this kind of stuff. And then what is important, we move forward from monolithic architecture towards the microservices architecture, where you try to have small parts of your system. And just to slides, I would like to remark that we are working with some colleagues to motivate this concept of cloud continuum towards a new concept of smart computing, and we just launched the lab. Essentially, we are trying to mimic the chemical aspect of the environment, with the software membrane for security, and with the micro elements. This is the lab launched with some my friends in Europe, in the Technical University of Vienna, Sharon Duster, Omer Rana, and Rajiv Rakib from Newcastle. 5G is a bit more real, but need help. Because to be honest, we don't know really what is useful to, because we're looking for smart city, as I said, industry 4.0, agriculture, but should we need really the 5G for this kind of scenarios? We have to understand. It has already concept about slice and edge computing is in his blood. And repeat, we're trying to make a virtual everything, essentially network much more. If you see this picture from Orange, you say, okay, it's a nightmare. They're trying to deliver a lot of 5G worldwide, but the main part is to integrate the telco operators with each other. This is the main challenge of 5G nowadays. Try to figure out some new network functionality on the way. And look at the picture. It's a really complex. It's a complex picture trying to say, okay, you're a company, you're a telco, you're a Telecom Italia, you are a Orange, you can be British Telecom, and so on and so forth. Trying to interact with each other, and the network is a nightmare. For sure, it's a nightmare because we're trying to figure out many orchestrators, many stuff, many things. We're trying to understand something more, and we're looking some initiative named Lean NFV, try to simplify all the complexity, because the complexity is there. The complexity is on the network, guys, and then we can see how we follow into the security. And what is the main aspect of try to have a lean NFV? Try to those services, you discover them and you use them. Essentially, try to simplify all the stuff. This is the idea. It's a cloud infrastructure, essentially. You can see the SDN controller and the computer controller, but everything will be solved by the key value approach. Key value is something that is largely used in map reviews in Google and so on and so forth. Essentially, we try to put one central place for all information. This is essentially the idea. And we totally agree in Messina, we are trying to work on this. Safety. I started safety, no security, because I want to share with you some things. We are looking for virtual device and camera stuff. We're making some use case there. And using a model, OpenFast, that allow you to have a functional service. You deploy what you need. This is what you are thinking. You see what's happening some time ago about the Vienna issue, and we want to have a scenario. Can you imagine a scenario of 5G and edge that you are able to deploy with a new useful service? This is what we are looking at. I want to share with you. Not only, but some an example on security. We are working with the local system for distribution of water, and they want to make security and privacy of it. It's a Messina use case. The idea is to digitalize the water network and to come up with cybersecurity and trust IoT. This is a concrete example we're working on. This you can see the network, the distribution of water. You see the city of Messina is quite long. As you can imagine, over the sea. It's not the ocean, Augusto, but it's the Mediterranean Sea, quite beautiful. Okay, what we want to do is to put some smart metering in convenient areas, but even at home, there's a lot of security. You see all of the connection, all the stuff. There's an example where we took the map, original map, we put it within our university, my student here on the map. It is a really useful work. And you see, try to figure out how to consume the water in each part of the city. Security, because you have to put some important elements. For this reason, we are looking to make smart metering with a new protocol that I think is quite, it's the same protocol we're using in the chat system on Signal, and we are using it. Why the security? Because we want to guarantee that integrity, because in terms of metering, we need to know exactly how much data you can receive, but not only if we make a maintenance of a technician, so if we have to make some repair of stuff, you need to know who is operating on that. It's really important from the company of water distribution in Messina, but I think everywhere in any place. So the idea is to put technicians in the loop with application in any part of distribution, and you want to put on the blockchain to know who's doing what. And repeat, it's concrete work that we come up with. It's really incredible. So the objective, federate the blockchain, study the trusted water flow meter, of course, offline trusted IoT storage. You cannot be all the times connected. You can be sometimes disconnected. This can happen. And repeat, you try to look for identity, something that many colleagues before of me said that you need that. You need some security aspect to guarantee technician, to guarantee all the parts of the water distribution, but even the smart meters and also all the rest, essentially the idea. The idea is to link together the device with the right technician and the right people. We're using some QR code with the skill linking, but especially when the algorithm is quite complex. You see here the identity, and then they have the opportunity to have the connection with the Wi-Fi or 5G where the connection is there. As I said, a private network and public network both together in order to allow trustworthiness across systems. The municipality with the water distribution and the others stakeholders. I'm putting some slides that to say is based on 3.3 approach. Is quite interesting. By the way, we put everything on the blockchain and it's working very well. Here you have the capability to see what's going on in any part of the city. Of course, it's a proof of concept and is operating. Okay, thank you for listening, Augusto. I hope that it was clear what I presented. I apologize for 1 minute later, Augusto.
No, it's not a problem. It's just a delay for crossing the ocean and getting your seat.
It's true. It's true.
And I can follow your pictures from your window. A very, very beautiful view from Messina. Thank you, Massimo, very much. I would like now to go beyond the academia view in terms of private security and 5G and go to the industry. And we have two invited people here, very active here. The first one comes from the telecom world, which is Marcelo Motta. Marcelo Motta is with Huawei, that big Chinese telecom, which is investing a lot in 5G technology. Along his long journey in Huawei, Marcelo has worked as Director of Mobile Broadband Global Solution Marketing, Director of Digital Transformation Marketing, Director of 5G Core Network and Edge Computing Marketing, and now he is the Director of Cybersecurity and Solutions at Huawei. Marcelo, do you have slides?
Yes,
Marcelo?
I have. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now, yeah.
Can you hear me fine?
Yeah, it's okay. You can share your screen if you want.
Yeah, I can hear you. Okay, so let me share. Just a second.
Okay.
Okay. So hope you guys can see my screen. So many thanks for the invitation to be together with you guys here. All right. And I'm going to talk here a little bit about the overall cyberspace, the security problem, considering the overall cyberspace. But let's start with the telecom network. All right. So basically, I collected some data from Europe about the failures that in fact impacted the telecom network services there, right? And according to ENISA, they bring some data about these failures, these incidents in 2017, and about the 62% of the issues were related to system failures, right? 35% related to human and natural factors affecting the network, and just 3% related to malicious actions. If you analyze a little bit deeper about the system failures, we can see that most of these failures, they are in fact related to signaling storms, especially once you have software upgrades in place. All right. So this is a very important point. 90% out of these 62% of system failures is caused by software updates and signaling storms, right? So what is system? What we can do better to improve this part? This is pretty much related to software, right? But the overall cyberspace is not only composed by the telecom networks, because actually you use the telecom networks, you connect a lot of devices to this network, and then you're gonna go for the applications. And there are millions, billions of applications in the clouds, all right? So here we see several of these failures that happen, right? So probably you guys heard about Mirai botnet, right? A lot of the IoT devices attacking a single server or a small group of server there. And once all these 500,000 devices attack these servers, for sure this server collapsed, and that this is a big problem, right? At the same time, we all remember about 2015 data leakage from Facebook and Cambridge Analytica. So this is a problem in the application layer, not related to the telecommunication network. So what I'm trying to say is that, okay, telecommunication network is there, but we also have the IoT devices, also have the applications, and this some way belongs to different domains, and the overall cyberspace, in fact, we need to look in all these domains, all right? So this is the way we see the overall security of the cyberspace, right, in different layers. You have the device layer, the IoT, then you have the network. So the network serve to this IoT to collect data. This data come here to this compute layer. So you have big data, and you are going to build up applications. So you have the final, the application layer. So we need to look for the overall cyberspace in all these different layers, right? But if you talk specifically about the network layer, right? Actually, we need to protect this. We are talking about the telecom networks. We need to have the equipment itself, the network element, okay? Secure network elements. Then these network elements, they'll be connected to compose a network architecture, right? And the divisions of this network into domains, the security of these domains, the protection of these domains, this is usually a task for the operators themselves. So the suppliers, like us, we provide the network elements. Operators, they build up the architecture, right? And who operates the network? Usually the operation and maintenance team of operators. So once we talk about 5G security, we are talking about network elements, the network architecture, and the network operation, all right? And overall, we need to look end-to-end, okay? But here, we are mainly focused on the telecommunication network. Okay? And in the telecommunication network, as Professor Marcus mentioned about the concept of trustworthiness, right? Actually, the telecom world is pretty much standardized. And long ago, ITU and other standardization entities, they defined that, okay, I want a resilient product, right? Control plane, data plane, management plane, all separated. Because if any issue happen, the service of telecommunication, the offer service of telecommunication is not interrupted. So this is something that we have been working on for a long time. Now, the concept of trustworthiness means that we need to solve the issue of software upgrades. We need to solve the issue of signaling storms. So this means that we need to carefully write down the codes and check our codes, okay, and make sure the codes, they are completely in a good shape before they go to the real environment. So we are talking about some equipments these equipments, they will live for a long time, which means they need some software updates. We need to make sure that these software updates, they will come, the software has no malicious code inside, all right? And once this comes to the real network, this is not going to bring over signaling and it causes some troubles in the networks. This is particularly important in the era of software-defined networks, all right? So trustworthiness is not only about the result, the final product that is great, but is also about the new software, the updates of these equipments to make these equipment safe throughout all its life cycle, all right? Inside our company, this means that we need to develop the solutions already with all the security and privacy protection necessities in mind. So here you have a process to develop products, and I have inside this process some checkpoints where I check, my R&D, they check if the security, the privacy concerns, they are fulfilled. So my R&D, they develop this, they test the solution, but Huawei cannot launch these solutions to the market. Before we launch this to the market, we take this to an independent lab. This independent lab, we make compliance tests, check if you comply with the standardizations, and penetration tests. The equipment is there, so can a hacker invade this equipment or not? So just after 1 and 2, Huawei allow its solutions to be launched to the market, right? But so 1 and 2 is the minimum. But additionally, customers, they test our solutions. There are plenty of certifications that our solutions get into the market, right? From the market. And also we have cybersecurity transparent centers. We have these in China and Belgium, okay? So operators and customers, they can come, they can use these centers to test the solutions, to audit the soft code. And so this is the most transparent thing available in our telecom industry. We are the unique ones to put these facilities available for customers and governments, all right? So actually 1, 2, and 3 means that I'm collecting inputs to improve my products in a pretty much dynamic way, different teams, different tools, different inputs for us to keep improving the solution all the time, all right? So this applies to all the solutions. Once you come to 5G itself, it's important to highlight that the 5G, the standardization of 5G, right? This is not Huawei, this is the market. The market, the 3GPP specifications bring much more security to 5G than 4G. Not only security, but also privacy. In all these 5 domains that I put forward here, 5G is better in terms of security in comparison to 4G. Because also 4G is better than 3G, okay? So this is the way our industry goes. And considering trustworthiness, right, the need of trustworthiness, they need to fulfill these specifications. 3GPP put forward the specifications, and GSMA, they bring up a new way to test equipment. They develop what they call NESAS, Network Equipment Security Assurance Scheme for 5G. So the specs are there from 3GPP. So there are some labs, some methodology that GSMA put forward. So you can test your solutions and you can have a 5G international security assurance kind of certification for your process and for your equipment. Okay? Ourselves, we are heavily investing on this. So our solutions from the BTS side, G-Node B side, right? We already get these certifications, the IPD process, the development process of these solutions, and the same for our core network. So this is pretty much important because not only the equipment, but also throughout the life cycle. The software, the way you develop the software, the way you encrypt your software, you put like digital signature to transfer abroad, the way you install these in your equipment and so on. These need to be very well controlled. At the same time, there are some other industry certifications like common criteria, right? There are different levels for common criteria. And for telecom, usually EAL3 is the maximum, right? But in our case, as we open our source code for certification of independent analysts, so this is the requirement of EAL4, Evaluation Assurance Level 4. So Huawei is also now have this certification because we are the unique one from the equipment suppliers, right, to open this source code for evaluation. So then I come here to this slide where I show the network, all right? Basically, what do we have? We have the access, we have core, we have transmission elements. So this is the network of operator. This network, in fact, this is the internal part of this network, but then we have external elements. All this traffic goes to the internet. All this traffic goes, you connect it to other operators, right? Or you have some external people accessing your network for management purposes. But as pointed out before, there are the devices, and the attacks can come from the devices. So ourselves, we need to look at all these borders and protect these. This is not different from anything that we have been doing so far, except that we have 5G here, all right? And 5G, the equipment itself, the protocols inside, from the standardization point of view, there are several improvements as we point out. So from standards, okay, we build up equipments. We wish to bring trustworthy equipment to the market. This is why we invest heavily, right? Then you have the architecture, belongs to the operator. Operation and maintenance belongs to the operator. But the most important, even if you have a most perfect telecom network, it's important we share and we collaborate, because the cyberspace is not the only the telecom network. You have the applications, you have the devices, you have the cloud computing platforms. So the best way for us to fight the challenge against the cybersecurity challenge, right, these threats, is actually collaboration for us to quickly align, quickly share experience, and to fight back all these threats, okay? So basically, this is what I have from today. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Marcelo, very much. It was a very nice, brief speech, but with very nice inputs here. We have a lot of questions here. For the last one, but not the least, I would like to invite Dr. Roberto Gallo. Roberto Gallo, he is the CEO of the Cryptos company. He has over 20 years of experience in cryptography, cyber defense, and intelligence, working simultaneously in both industry and academia through participation in dozens of projects with clients in the financial, corporate, and military sectors. Thank you very much, Roberto. So now you're ready to go.
Well, thank you very much. It is a pleasure to be with you today, and also it's a pleasure to have all those bright presentations from my colleagues. Also, it makes my job a little bit easier in the sense that I do not need to introduce many of the concepts, but also to makes it a little bit more difficult because I need to add something to the discussion. So I have this presentation. I gave a version of this presentation a couple of months ago, but I think that the things that are here can help a lot on the discussion. I will take the perspective of national security and show why some of the claims and some of the perspectives expressed by my colleagues do not necessarily hold when you take into account the bigger picture. So what is the 5G? The 5G is a very large business. According to the World Economic Forum, it amounts to the $13.2 trillion in the next 10 years. So the point that we have is that, well, basically the US had its Sputnik moment. They were not too into the 5G, and China, through Huawei, ZT, and etc., managed to have their 5G working. As if you remember, if you have studied a little bit of history, you know that after the Second World War, US basically, well, they were not too much into trying to lead everything. When the Soviet Union managed to launch their satellite, and then US engaged in this campaign to have the lead of the space. So this kind of feeling of being the second on something that they could be the first is the motivation for calling the name of Sputnik moment. So US had their Sputnik moment with 5G, and by knowing that this is a tool for both defense and intel purposes, along with naturally the telecom benefits that it can bring, they initiated a campaign, right? And this campaign is basically based on the fact that the lead of 5G is with the Chinese and the Koreans, and very behind on the schedule with the countries on the northeast of Europe and then US. So you can see that by number of patents as of February 2020. Okay, despite quite clear that the lead is with China. It happens that 1 second, we'll go through this thing. It happens, however, that the environment is quite complex. You have a number of technological players and different components in the play. You have the cloud services, because basically 5G is a great way of using cloud and consuming cloud services. You have data centers and tools for collaboration. You have content delivery networks. You have the 5G infrastructure itself. You have the mobile carriers. You have the mobile chipset technology, and you have the device themselves. So you need to, in order to have a trustworthy environment, actually you need to trust too many people and too many communication tires. So what we see is that basically it's a very tough call on making sure that things behave more or less as they expect. I heard my colleagues here talking about the concept of trustworthiness. I think that yes, we need that. But also I heard my colleague specifically from Huawei mentioning the name assurance. Yes, and the way to deliver trustworthiness is the best way to deliver, at least the best practical way to deliver that is through assurance. And indeed, there are schemes to provide assurance. And we'll comment a little bit more, but it's really a very large challenge because there are too many players into the supply chain, and making sure that a single player behaves nicely is not enough to make sure that the overall infrastructure will deliver privacy and security. Actually, what we see is that it does not deliver, and it will not deliver. That's the point. If you do some statistics here, if just there's a single chance of having whatever from a backdoor from a 0 day open 0 day at a given moment of only 5% per player, then you can easily see that you will always be vulnerable. One thing that I would like to mention is also regarding the concept that more and more systems are moving their computational power from edge computing to the cloud computing model. And I claim that the the biggest challenge today is not necessarily on the infrastructure itself, but rather on the new applications or the way you think the new applications. So the new applications should take into account that the network is not reliable in the sense of being available, and it's not also reliable in the sense that it's secure in terms of cybersecurity, just because it's impossible to assure that. Of course, you can see 5G being used in many different applications. This is a very nice application. It's live surgery performed through a 5G network with a 3D camera. So the benefits are really large, and we should not let this avoid the usage of 5G or prevent the usage of a given player, right? It should not be enough. Being afraid of security and reliability should not be enough to discard a given player, whatever the player is. Of course, someone can mention, okay, we have problems with Huawei or ZTE or whatever because they came from a country which is known for the not so how can I say that, interesting laws. So yes, indeed, there are scandals mentioning the usage of Huawei equipments, leaking information from the African Union, but also you have the same thing with NSA, and you have what you saw a few days this year twice already, that a few companies around the world have been purchased by CIA to actually be able to do interception for intelligence purposes. So this is part of the game, right? We should not think that this is not going to happen. Also, we should not think that we'll be able to avoid that, right? So the way of thinking is basically, okay, I cannot trust 100%. I mean, not even close to that. If you are taking into account national interests, if you're taking into account intelligence, if you're taking into account defense. You must be completely sure that if you have a 5G network, and if you need this 5G network to defend your country, and if you is against, by any chance, an interest of the country that provides the technology, this technology will not function when you need it. So you can see that happening, for instance, what the Russians made in the Georgian War. Basically what they did. You see a lot of tanks here waiting for the cyber campaign stop. So what they did in the early, around the 2006, if I'm not wrong, they used the so-called hybrid war. They disabled all the telecom infrastructure and used the telecom infrastructure to perform psychological war, demobilizing the defense forces and then moving with the cybernetic forces. So that's precisely what a state does with the technology they control. Simple like this. It's not theory. It's practical. It's been used, right? You have the scandal of the Crypto AG, the company based in Switzerland. So this is something that people perform, right? So let's talk a little bit about how we could try to avoid a little bit of those things. One thing is the following. You have two main concerns here from our perspective. One is information security, that being used for privacy, whatever. One way of solving this is actually not depending on the infrastructure. You should use end-to-end encryption. You should solve the security issues on the layer over the top of the infrastructure. As the infrastructure have too many players, you need to trust too many people, you better trust fewer number of players, and make sure that things are secure end-to-end. The other thing is basically make sure that the law would apply, right? Making sure that whoever the provider, the vendor that acts against you or against the country or whatever could be fully prosecuted under the national laws. In Brazil, for instance, we have a law for that reason, but not necessarily you have the law for every country. So there's a way. The other thing, the other aspect is resilience. How can I make sure that the network will be there if I need to mobilize anything? The solution is simple. You have many different carriers. You should make sure that those different carriers do not depend on a single third-party country. Should US decide that we will not be operating 5G networks, still will have China. If China decides that will not be operating their technology, we'll be using US technology. So variability is the key on having a reliable network. So it's not good for the country that every single carrier uses the same technology. So just mentioning, just to do a few final remarks. The first is about the nature of computing systems versus the legal thing. On the legal, you need to prove that something is wrong. When we talk about security, safety, and etc., we need to prove the otherwise. We know that by default systems are not secure, not reliable, not safe. So you need to perform through a series of steps, through a series of process and a series of tests. You need to try to have enough arguments to make a case, the so-called assurance case. This assurance case is what you need. Is a formal tool. There are formal tools based on assurance cases that can provide you a certain level of assurance. This assurance, of course, talks to the trustworthiness of the system. There's a relationship, although they are not exactly the same. Another thing is that no matter what a vendor can prove over the software, and the software has the advantage that you can check that a given copy of the software is identical to the other, right? You have digital signature, hashes, and etc. But on a hardware level, you cannot do that. This is just a single microchip. Some of you have seen those microchip without the epoxy layer. It looks like this. If you go a little bit deeper, you see basically the semiconductor inside. You see the gates, the semiconductor gates. But what you don't know is that most of the people doesn't know is that you can take this is the section, transversal section of a microcircuit. This is an instrument called the FIB, focused ion beam. This instrument can change the connection between the bits inside a microchip, and you can do that after the chip is manufactured. Actually, this is used for that reason. If you have a very critical system, you can modify the hardware, just one chip, just the given chip, and make sure that it has a hardware backdoor. So, and it's okay, it's super expensive. No, it's not expensive. The university here at my side has a FIB. FIB is an instrument that costs maybe $1 million, but once you have it, you can modify the number of chips that you want. If you have a hard target of a national interest, you can change the chip. You never know. So there's no reasonable claim. No vendor can claim that their system is assured under malicious actor. What I'm saying is that common criteria is great. We have at our company we are certifying systems for common criteria AL4+. It's okay. We have been certifying systems as FIPS 140, whatever. The point is not that. The whole certification process assumes that the vendor will not lie. That's the point. It's not adversarial. It's collaborative. However, what happens is that if you go to the this is some of the laws that a few countries are subject to. If you go to the UK, for instance, you have the so-called Regulation of Investigatory Powers Act, a law from 2000. On its Article 51, it says vendors should provide a means to recover the encryption keys. It says explicitly over there. If you go to the new Chinese law, the encryption law, that is on effect as of January 2020, it says in its Article 31, the state cryptography administration will have access to, and you have the same thing in the US. The law is there. So the only way actually to assure that you will have safe and reliable communication is actually assuming that the infrastructure can and will be compromised, at least when you're talking to national security. So it's not, that's the game as it's played. Just to finish my collaboration, this is a quite interesting diagram. It's from the Carnegie Mellon University, the same that maintains the CMM maturity model. And it shows the way of designing systems, which is called the V model. It relates to the waterfall model or to the Scrum model, whatever. It's called the V. It's the V for verification. So each aspect from the left has a match to the right. So I have the requirements of the solution, so I will check it against the operation. I have the system design, I will check through the acceptance test and system test and etc. But the nice thing is here is the following. It has been shown that some 70% of all system defects are inserted at the design and not necessarily at the implementation. That means checking code is quite ineffective for assuring that the system doesn't have a defect. We need to have tools and means to identify defects, including security defects, at the architectural level. So it's a quite interesting result. You should be, I recommend you going through those data. And finally, just to mention the final item that no computing guy should ever forget is about the Rice theorem. The Rice theorem is related to the Halt theorem, and basically says that you can never assure that a general system will be free from defects, from cyber defects. It's simple for a general system, right? You can have very specific systems with a model and a proven model, but it's highly unpractical for most of the systems. So there is a strong limitation on the assurance that we can provide on general systems, and no serious vendor should ever claim that something is free from defects, because it's basically impossible to assure. So I conclude my remarks here. Sorry for not taking into account too much privacy, but I think that my colleagues went through all the relevant aspects about privacy and security, and I'd like to just provide more of a national security aspect. And please let's be clear that I'm not saying that you should not use provider A or B or C. I think that pretty much they're all the same. They are subject to laws that we do not control. They cannot assure anything because it's basically theoretically impossible. And whatever the certificates they provide, it assumes that they are being collaborative, and it's not the case, always the case. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Roberto. It was a very nice speech for sure. It should be a very nice keynote, and we can arrange opportunities for that. Well, I would like now to come up with all the panelists so that we can address some Q&As that we have room here. I have a lot of questions here, and just make a brief selection. I don't know if we're gonna have room for all of them, but I will just put here at the, are we all here? Yes, we are all here. Well, the first question's from Francisco Salles, and he says that just that information privacy at 5G is under quite good discussion worldwide. In some cases, we have the claim that AI can improve a lot, spying other people and so on. There is a lot of another question here that says that we all know that from mobile device, laptop, smartphone, and so on, they have mechanisms to process video, process audio, and contextualize information, and not that bad. But in terms of privacy, this is should be not acceptable. So, Wes, what can you say about that? Can you raise it about that regarding, because this is I don't know if this is security, but this is more privacy. So what can you say about that? That we have technology spying us every time, the whole day, when you just have to breathe, so that contextualizing a circumstance of your life to provide events, to suggestions, and so on. What can you say about that? Oh yeah, you're free to just start talking. We are just talking here in the same environment.
Okay, so we'll share a few things. So using open source data or social media information is for gathering information. It's already for spying. I mean, the right name is for intelligence, right? Spying just a way of doing intelligence, but for intelligence is a practice already. Every single intelligence agents in the world do have tools for doing that. So they have they're being applying artificial intelligence for at least for the last 5 years. So it's reality. It works really nicely. That's what I can say to you. And the point is that most of the information is just there. I mean, people do post things on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, etc., etc., etc. It's just a matter of doing the scrapping, correlating things. It's really a piece of cake. So actually, you have included commercial companies doing that. If you go to a credit evaluation score, you have companies that evaluate your credit score. They're doing that all the time. It's a business that has maybe 20 years. So yeah. And I don't think that 5G has a special impact on that. I think that it's a mess already.
So if I can add something, Augusto, I was thinking the big debate in using the application for tracing the people with the COVID and stuff. And you can imagine in Europe, but much more in Italy, they try to to guarantee the privacy, because there's a really good algorithm with open source and stuff. You cannot imagine all the people that are looking on the social. You say, no, you're crazy, you don't say that. And what is happening last month is in the second wave, you cannot believe how many people write, I'm positive, blah, 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 everything. People write everything on the Facebook. So in one side, they want to avoid using this application that really does not know nothing about you. Instead, they, let's say, voluntarily write all the stuff, my parents is sick, blah, 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 all the stuff. It's crazy. The issue is some kind of a trend. You have to say, oh, let's go to be against 5G. Even in Messina, there was a discussion between many people saying, we don't want to have it. It seems as Roberto said, I agree with him. It's not a matter of 5G. It's a matter of everything. 5G is a technology, and it's not because there is 5G and we risk something specifically. No, it's what we are doing, the application and the social media. It's the reality. That's it.
Go, Michele, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with Roberto and also Massimo in terms of the, let's say, application layer. We can see this in terms of data on the application. But I also think, and we have some research on that, on the network layer and all the other lower layers of the infrastructure. So this, yes, has to do with the 5G, because even in this network and the text level, we can understand the behavior of the applications outside. So we, with the intelligence, artificial intelligence technique, we can discover applications that's being used and how. And another thing is the position of the people. So this also has to do with the privacy. So all of this is related with the privacy and comes up with his question. So this I would like to ask.
Go ahead, Marcelo, go ahead.
Okay. So I think there is a very important point here once we talk about privacy, right? The privacy aspects, they started to be treated through regulations in Europe, right? After the incidents like a Snowden case and the Cambridge Analytica, GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation, came into place in Europe. And these, in fact, inspire this privacy regulation in many countries, including Brazil. So fortunately, we have LGPD already available here in our country for us to deal with the privacy information of the users in all different levels that I mentioned, in different layers. All right. So this is something very good for us to protect the systems, to protect the privacy, to cryptograph, anonymize information, and to avoid the privacy information or to leak or to be attacked. So I think this is already a very important step. Once the question bring the issue of AI, right, to attack other nations and so on, and this is a very important point because, and this is why in my presentation I emphasized about the collaboration. In all these different layers, we need to be open to globally collaborate to fight this cyber challenge that we have ahead. All right, more we exchange and we can use this artificial intelligence also to fight back these new threats that are going to come. Okay, so we can use technology to fight technology, and you can use collaboration. All right, this is very important point. I agree with some of the points Dr. Roberto point out, but not all, right? Because I have no doubt that the system, all the systems, they have a vulnerability, right? And the challenges, they are non-stop. this is going to increase along the time. But similar to a car that is safe, but once in the journey we find out new issues we are going to solve, we need to have a process, right, to evaluate, to check the equipment according to the most advanced specifications developed so far. And then the commitment to keep improving these along the way. I think this is the approach that we ensure that, okay, all the companies, they are up to date with the most advanced regulations, and the commitment of these companies to keep investing and to keep fighting this challenge. All right, so this is a very important point. Just another, before I stop, and just a comment that Mr. Roberto brought in his presentation, talking about Huawei and the African Union, right? I would like to remark that this accusation happened in 2018, beginning of 2018. The union, the African Union, they deny all these accusations, and they already renew contract with us. They expanded the contract with us. So my point is that there are plenty of accusations. Myself, I have to debate. I have to sometimes these things, they come back and back again. So we need to reinforce and to share the final facts after these accusations came up. I'm not saying that what I'm trying to say is that ourselves, we need to have the ABC: assume nothing, believe in no one, check everything. And there are plenty of rumors. I think I'm just want to express the need for us to go up to the end to check the facts in a rational basis to really clarify all the important questions, right?
Augusto, if I may say something very quickly about this. First, I believe that 5G will exacerbate the problem. Right now, we are in more conditions of connecting everything. The problem exists. The problem is already there. The privacy issues, the problem is already there. But 5G and the possibility of large scale connecting everything everywhere at every moment will exacerbate the problem. Regulations, and I come from Europe, so I know how it works with GDPR, are fantastic, are needed, but they will not fix the thing. Because if you think about this, only for time being, only Europe and now Brazil, I know that Brazil adopted a similar regulation, are using these regulations. Can you imagine, and sorry, this is probably be recorded, but can you imagine such a regulation in the United States or in China? Are we protected? I'm not sure. This is just my opinion. I'm not endorsing anyone, but the regulations will not fix anything. And as Robert was saying before, we cannot rely on a single company. We need to have diversity also in the infrastructure, because this will be an issue. Just a very final thing about privacy. We cannot compare this with the social networks. Only people that want it's optional. I don't have a Facebook account. I used to have in the past. I deleted the account. I don't have a Facebook account. But my telecom provider knows where I am. They know a lot about me. They know about my devices in my home. For example, they know about when the garage door is open and closed, right? And 5G will increase this. And when it comes to large scale, like countrywide privacy aspects, this will be an issue. This will be a huge issue.
For sure. Yeah, Marcelo, just before you say something, the 5G era, is about a system. It's not about only the network. What we are talking about, very powerful and teeny devices that is in our hand, that is in our body, much more powerful than before, and they run now with a very low latency. Very powerful algorithms, for example, machine learning and so on, that it should be not expected or believed to run before. And now they are in place, and they will be connected by a convergent network, not only by the 5G radio, but is a convergent network. Different technologies. We're going to have data coming from satellites, from cars, from robots, and so on. And we have a room here for a huge number of use case. And Roberto brought some very interesting one, for example, in terms of tactile internet, that you can make surgery, for example. You can have robots, inside of very critical situations. And if someone attack this, it can cause a lot of damage. You can also lose lives and so on. For example, imagine someone switch off, the energy supply of a hospital now, which is full due to COVID, for example. So this is a war. You don't have a bullet. You just hit a button, and you destroy, for example, a country. And this is even worse in developing countries and undeveloped countries, for sure. And it's what we see. We see, for example, the recent attack here in the election of Brazil. It was a very young boy in Portugal, for example, and this is this is very common to happen. Very young people without responsibility that just know very much technology, and they doesn't have good intention, but just to make something to bring attention to him. And now with the technologies, with the open system, of course, when you use open source, which is even worse. But Marcelo, please, if you want to come up with something. Please.
Very good point that the Professor Marcus point out. 5G will bring in much more devices, all connected, right? But these devices, they will come for a purpose of application. So it's important to differentiate the connectivity, which is actually a pipe. Usually, we need to make sure that the device and the from devices with application usually uses encrypted at end-to-end, right? So the operator itself, the information is not open for the telecom operator. The telecom operator must be able to authenticate that device, but actually, in the higher layer, in the application layer, the information about this door is open or not open may belong to the application layer. So this is why I emphasize the different layers there, right? And we need to take care of all these different layers, the devices, the operators, right? Which sure it's very important, but also it's the most standardized area in our cyberspace. Then you come to cloud computing, the computing part, and applications. So we need to really pay attention to all these stacks, and there are different laws. There are laws that have extra territoriality, which means that some laws from some countries, they have like global coverage. And this is an important point because it would be great if all the countries, global-wise, we agree on some global regulation, or at least the regulations from the different countries, they keep it concentrated in its own domain, its own territory. Otherwise, it's a kind you regulate something here that cover the other nations. So this looks like not fair, but this is still missing global-wise a kind of approach to regulate the overall cyberspace. And this, I think, it's a big challenge for us, for the country.
Oh yeah, for sure. And this is very nice what you bring here. Yeah. Just Roberto, and you bring a very, very interesting subject here, which is in terms of application. Before, I think we could separate application layer from the network layer and the layer below. But now, and network's completely different now. Applications everywhere, and high level application, which is application very close. The network function, most of the network function are now virtualized. And now we don't tell, for example, telecom operator, we say the telco cloud operator, which is cloud native there. And moreover, the 5G brings a concrete application of deployment of the edge to cloud continuum, or IoT to cloud continuum, where you have IoT on one side, you have the core cloud on the other side, and you have a lot of extensions from the cloud at the network edge. It is even much more challenging because you have application everywhere.
Yeah.
And before we say, oh, we're going to use the cloud, and indeed you're going to use the cloud, but you don't know where in the cloud. It's in the core cloud, in the edge cloud, in the mist cloud, which is very, inside the device. And you have a lot of traits, a lot of vulnerabilities here in terms of security, in terms of privacy, all of this. So I think that we should not separate the application because if someone attack a VNF, which is, I know that all of the Chinese operators, for example, and Japanese as well, all of the network functions are virtualized. It's 100%. In United States, I know that it's 70%. In Europe is about this as well. So if someone attack a chain of network functions, we're gonna have a very huge attack. So you guys, what can you raise about that?
Yeah, the thing that I would like to add is maybe a more the cross is in the intersection of what you just asked and the previous question. It's just to add to the debate. The first thing is that safety and security do have very distinct models, right? Usually in safety, you are concerned about stochastic events. And basically stochastic events, they do not coordinate, right? You do not have an adversary or in some cases an enemy, right? So this is something to be in mind. So the type of tests that I do when I'm talking about safety and so resilience of the network in terms of safety are completely different from security. So just have in mind. Usually when I talk about security and regulations, the situation is even worse because I talk about compliance regulations. That means I need to provide a trace that I'm following the compliance guidelines. Usually, compliance regulations do not look for defects. They look for things supporting your claim, but without completion. So it's pretty easy to go through a compliance whatever. It does not mean that you are not doing. The idea of compliance regulations is to check whether you have a process installed. So there's a big lack when you talk about, I'm not antagonizing with Marcelo, okay, just to mention something, which is the following. One thing is collaborating under an international umbrella in terms of laws, regulations, technical standards, and I'm a true believer that we should go through this path. When we're talking about the civil usage of the network, which is a thing, it's a benefit for the whole mankind. The other thing is the following phrase. I just will mention the following phrase, then it's just food for thought. There are friendly countries, but there are not friendly intelligence services, period.
This is a good point. This point of the regulations is really great. Let me give you an example that you all know, has nothing to do with security and shows our regulations are not enough. You remember Volkswagen, the scandal with the emissions of Volkswagen? There are antitrust, right? And they did the worst thing expected. So we can never. Regulations are not enough, complies with regulations, or says that it is not enough. The problem goes far beyond that, and it is a technological problem. Also, it's not just about regulations, and it is much more complex than what we think, because regulations for safety, for example, and when I talk about safety, I'm talking about safety critical systems like cars and trains and airspace and planes and so on. Normally, everyone wants to follow these regulations because they want to avoid accidents, right? No aircraft developer, builder wants the aircrafts to fall down, right? But when it comes to taking advantage of something, either information in terms of security or any other thing, like Volkswagen wanted to take advantage of the regulations, you can never trust. You never know who is in front of the companies.
Yeah, as far as I remember, you have a Volvo, you don't have a Volkswagen, otherwise you should be rich now with a very nice process. Michele, you raise your hand, so you can speak now.
It was regarding to your question for the applications everywhere, and so we don't need to really differentiate the layers. I'm not sure if I agree, because at least I see 2 layers, let's say, because still you have the applications, but we also can think about the communication channel. That there is a lot of vulnerabilities in terms of security and privacy. So if we still think about the applications, we can see an endpoint, but we will always think about the communication channel that have their own vulnerabilities in that sense. So I'm not sure if I agree with that perspective of not think about layers.
Yeah, because now you have to think. Yeah, because in the past we think computer networks as 5 or 7 layers, and now you think about 2 layers actually. You have the physical layer and you have the virtualization layer, and you have, of course, the layers virtualized there, and different perspectives as well. Well, I have two more. Who? Sorry, Marcelo. Yeah, sure. Yeah, we have just 2 more questions here before we can run out the panel. So please, go on.
No, just a comment that I do agree that the companies should have process in place. They need to be open to fix some new vulnerabilities that come up. They need to be responsible, right? To fulfill the local laws, attend the local regulations, and to be punished in case something out of these regulations and so on goes wrong. But most important, to be there, to be transparent, right? To be under the disposal of different governments for clarification, and to provide mechanisms, right, for audit and tests and so on. So I think this is very important, to be open and transparent, to solve any issues that probably can come up, or because the environment is changing, all these kind of things change. In all these domains, there are plenty of all things, all threats that technology brings have ways to solve as well, right? The community, right, has ways to deal with this and to mitigate those threats. But these are kind of things that go there, and it's evolution, right? Little by little, we are evolving. So the company should be responsible, continuously evolve to deal with these new cybersecurity channels and vulnerability.
Yeah, indeed, yeah. So, what you guys have to say about national authorities? What they have to do? I know that when we talk about national authorities, of course, we have a different perspective in the world. But from the findings that you have, what should the national authorities do to move forward in cybersecurity? So that paving the way towards a really trustful 5G system. Go ahead.
Okay, I've been studying this matter for a while right now, so that's trying to be to make the first collaboration. The function of the national state is to assure security. It's the only thing that does not self-regulate. That's why the state has the monopoly of the force, the use of the force, the violence, right? And that's also why, I don't know, safety of airplanes are regulated for a national authority. That's why, for instance, the usage of seatbelts are regulated by law and etc. So, with the respect of privacy and security, it cannot be self-regulated. Cambridge Analytica scandal is an example that companies cannot be trusted to handle events that happens very seldomly. If the event is very rare to occur, the risk most of the times for the company, they compensate. So we need the state to regulate the subject. So because of that, I truly believe that, for instance, the European Commission, when they regulated the GDPR, they did the right thing. That's also why I think that the National Agency for Data Protection in Brazil is absolutely necessary. What I think is that those agencies need to have, of course, a technical body, because it's a complicated matter, but also the power to enforce the necessary fines and to start criminal prosecutions. The criminal part is quite important, because for a behemoth paying 1 million, 10 million, 100 million to be out of a process is easy. But making sure that the decisional guy, the decision chain will go to the jail has no price. So that's the point. It should be criminal and civilian, I mean, with fines. These are the two things that must be there. If you don't have it, you don't have anything. That's my opinion.
So, Augusto, if I can follow what Roberto is saying, I think nationally, but even globally, we are not ready. We don't have the infrastructure for dealing with this kind of stuff, because what Roberto is saying is quite clear. So they live another dimension. I mean, the regulators, the lawyers and stuff. He said that we are moving much more faster, and 5G technology and things. He said that before they need the technical body. I agree, but I think they need also some new skills. It's not only a matter of a technical body; it's a matter of understanding by the law how to create laws and stuff. It's a new story, guys. We are entering a digital era, and then it's about us, Augusto, to make in our university. I'm trying in my university to change the mindset of lawyers, of economical people and staff to push in this perspective, because it cannot be my song. Well, to sing songs all together, otherwise it doesn't work. That's it, Augusto.
Yeah, indeed. Michele is my personal friend, and of course I follow her in Facebook, not only in the professional contents, but also in personal contents. And I remember that during the elections, for example, she posted something that very, very interesting and provocative, which is when we, Brazil, when we gonna start thinking about cybersecurity? And it was indeed, that's it. I think Brazil is not prepared for that, at least as much as we need. And what can we do, Michele, in these regards?
Well, it's our system. It's not only the government. It's not only our technician, let's say. It's not only the academician. It's the system. I mean, we need to start to think about security as a child, let's say. we need to start to think about our home, and when we bring all these devices inside our home, we need also to think about security and start to maybe to make some pressure to the companies and to the government itself to think about that. Because if only the reverse, or if we just wait to see what happens, maybe it never will really be as we wish. So we need to, I don't know, it's just a system, and it's not easy. And I think also that we need some pressure, some kind of pressure on that sense, not only regarding to the government, but also for the industry. And I, as a professor, I think also it's our job to start those discussions inside our university.
Yeah. Well, we are just getting the end. And before we're wrapping up, I would just there are a lot of questions here that are unavoidable. It's unavoidable to make here. And Marcelo, it's of course we could expect such type of questions here, and you have the opportunity to raise the way, of course, you can. But what is really driving? What is behind the actions against Huawei 5G in terms of security in the world that is trying to banish the company?
I understand.
Not only Brazil, but Brazil is not banished there yet. But what is now is motivating some countries in the world to banish this giant of technology?
These accusations, they are not new. This happened since the time companies started growing and worldwide. This is not new, right? Ourselves, what we need to do is to have a strong and good process, and to be open and transparent, and to answer the questions, to show evidence, to open everything, right? So this is the best way I think we can do. Unfortunately, 5G itself was this highly political issue nowadays. But all these threats, if you forget about 5G, if you consider the fixed broadband, 4G, 4.5G systems that are in place, IoT is expanding, right? It's keep moving. Cloud computing is happening. Applications, they are everywhere. So this is not specific of 5G. This is something, the threats in the cyberspace is not specific to 5G, it's the specific of cyberspace. But some way, I believe this is now mixed with geopolitics. We need to separate this, right? Let's look at the cyberspace. You guys are professors. We are from the industry. So what can we do considering the challenges that we have, right? Isolated from these geopolitical aspects, because these may keep or may change anyway. The whole of industry, the whole of ICT is to keep transforming the economy into digital, right? And to expand the connectivity everywhere and bring these benefits to all the population worldwide, right? So ourselves, we are here to contribute. We heavily invest in innovation. We are leaders of patents, and the request for patents since 2016, 16, 17, 18, 19. So and you probably heard a lot of accusations that about the IPR. We paid from 2015 to 18 $6 billion in IPR, 80% to American companies. So this is what I mentioned before, that I'm trying to clarify these kind of things, and I also don't want to antagonize taking this to geopolitical aspects. Just I want to keep this as the whole of a private company to clarify and to be open and listen from the perspective of others like Roberto, Marco, right, Massimo, Michele. So I think this is good opportunity for ourselves to try to reach a common understanding, right?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, Huawei has indeed an impressive numbers and a lot of technologies, and it's a giant. And it's very nice hearing from you. Now, guys, if you want, you can provide wrap-ups here and final remarks, very short each one. No?
If I can speak, Augusto, let me say thank you a lot for the opportunity, because I fully think that it's important to share opinions, as Marcelo said, to understand, to move forward. And much more is required, first of all, to understand among us what should be the future, how we shape the future, because 20 years ago, Augusto, we were crazy people talking about the machine. Now these crazy people are converted the world in terms of what is required. And to foresee the future, what I want to say is what I want to stress, because we know how to deal with technology, how to avoid any misuse of the technology, and how to be a lighthouse. This is what I strongly believe. And about the panel, let me say thank you a lot, Augusto, for asking me to join. It was a real pleasure to meet in clockwise direction Roberto, Michele, Marco, and Marcelo, and of course you. Thank you, guys.
Roberto?
I'd like to thank you very much for the opportunity. It was a great discussion and frank and open. I think that if all the discussions were like this, we would be collaborating much more and many more times. So thank you very much, and I'm open to collaborate whenever you need again.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anyone? Final remark?
Just some final words. Thank you very much for inviting me to be here. It was really great for this discussion. It was really nice. And for our audience, just say that we are just in the beginning. This is just the tip of the iceberg, really. The future, the world is changing very, very fast. We are approaching this, we are having these very complex systems. Very soon we will have something that everyone heard about, the autonomous cars, autonomous systems, and so on. And from the security perspective, it is a huge, but really huge challenge also. So this is just the beginning. So no one will be unemployed in this domain.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This is true.
So I'd like to thank you guys. Very nice to hear all these opinions and considerations, right? And so I'm very happy to be here to share what we think about the subject. And I come to a principle that we use internally, which is our ABC: assume nothing, believe no one, check everything from everyone. So I think this is something that ourselves, from the security and privacy protection, this is a principle for all of us, right? Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Michele?
Yeah, thank you all also for this great conversation that we had, and thank you, Augusto, for the invitation.
Well, I thank you all. Well, I want to express gratitude for the participation of all you panelists. Reinforcing the productivity, with a very, very, very nice discussion. 6G is coming, is on the way, a lot of discussions, and it expects to bring intelligence to the network, intelligence over intelligence, and for sure we're going to have a completely disruptive infrastructure. I want to also thank the organization. I want to thank for the invitation, the opportunity to share this very nice panel. Well, guys, I'm very, very glad for being here, for sharing a very nice discussion. Hope forward, see you in other panels or a conference, physically, virtually, to log a lot, we're not only just seeing your video in front of me in the screen. Thank you so much. See you next time. See you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Desenvolvimento, produção e serviço mundial, sob um nome. Nós criamos soluções. Nós somos a Rode e Schwarz.
Well, guys, thank you so much for participating in the panel. I hope you have enjoyed our discussion and the opportunity to have more information. See you next time. And enjoy and come. See you. Bye.